Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for this WNCT Now digital news update. I'm Emily Severidge, live in the WNCT digital studio. Governor Cooper recently wrapped up a press conference with his coronavirus task force. In that conference, Governor Cooper announced providers can begin vaccinating Group 3 on February 24th. It will begin with childcare workers and educators in preschool and grades K through 12. It will also include education workers such as bus drivers and school food service workers. On March 10th, all other frontline workers can begin getting their vaccines as well. The CDC defines frontline essential workers as workers in sectors essential to the functioning of society and who are at substantially higher risk for exposure to the virus. Here's what Governor Cooper had to say.
I'm proud of North Carolina's success in getting all of our first dose shots in arms each week before the next shipment comes. We want to keep that up. As of last night, the state has administered almost 1.5 million vaccines, and we're continuing to push for more. Yesterday, the Biden administration told governors across the country that each state would receive 5% more vaccine, which amounts to about 7,500 more doses, 7,500 more doses in North Carolina this week. The more vaccines we can get, the better off we are, and we're going to keep pushing for that every day.
We're continuing to track COVID-19 cases statewide and across the East. Here are today's numbers. Health officials say North Carolina's hospital numbers are continuing their downward turn with just 2,300 patients in the hospital as of today. That marks the smallest number since early December. The state is also reporting its 7-day rolling average of 4,200. It also hits the lowest point since early December. Another 135 deaths have been reported, bringing the state's death total to 10,181. The percent positive remains in the 7% range and has been for the past 5 of 7 days. Health officials in our state say about half the population of the 65 and up age group have been vaccinated against COVID-19. And that's a good start, but there's still a lot of questions about when people will get the vaccine and what happens after you get it. Maggie Newland from our sister station in Raleigh answers about people testing positive for COVID even after getting the vaccine.
It's rare, but not impossible.
There are patients that are testing positive after both doses of vaccine.
It's happened to a congressman from Massachusetts and at least one man from California. And while WakeMed urgent care Dr. Christopher Chow says he hasn't seen it here yet, he won't be surprised if he does.
A vaccine is never 100%. So when you look at a 95% efficacy, if 100 patients developed COVID, you would still expect 5 patients out of the vaccine group to potentially become infected with COVID.
If you are infected after receiving the vaccine, though, he says those shots will significantly lower your chance of becoming seriously ill with COVID. And that's what they're supposed to do.
The vaccine works by actually decreasing my risk of developing severe symptoms. It decreases my risk of potentially needing hospitalization.
It's not yet clear whether the vaccine actually protects most people from becoming infected with coronavirus or whether it simply protects them from becoming sick if they get infected, in which case they may still test positive even if they feel fine.
We don't know if a vaccinated individual can still get COVID and be asymptomatic, or if they can still get COVID and pass it along to other people.
That's why he says it's so important to continue taking precautions, even after you get the vaccine.
Both my wife and I work healthcare. Both of us have received both of our vaccine doses. We still wear a mask. We still social distance. We still avoid high-risk behavior.
Robo animals bringing comfort to senior citizens and what workers at the Eiffel Tower are doing to keep the monument snow-free during this cold weather. That and more coming up after this short break.
In the WNCT Digital Studio is online for you. Live afternoon news updates.
Continuing to track COVID-19 cases.
Don't forget the positive news with Feel Good Friday.
How about we break out some dance moves to kick off your weekend? Remember to see the good in each day.
And if you're looking for your next eatery, Digital Dining has you covered.
Tonight we're visiting Cucina La Mantilla. We visit Blend in Jacksonville. We're visiting La Cocina del Colqui.
These and more on WNCT Now under the live stream tab.
Thanks so much for joining me. If you're just tuning in, I'm Emily Severidge, live in the WNCT Digital Studio, bringing you some evening updates. WNCT is bringing you live streamed updates every Monday through Friday at 1:30 p.m. and 4 o'clock p.m. to bring you the latest and up-to-date news before our nightly newscasts. Something pretty interesting. Workers at the Eiffel Tower have revealed the unique way that they keep the building safe during icy and cold conditions. Workers posted this video on Twitter showing how they use a blowtorch to melt the ice on the tower's surface. Snow has blocked roads, halted trains, and school buses across northern France today, and snow blanketed and froze the Eiffel Tower. A blowtorch was used because salt is too corrosive for the metal of the tower. The monument has been closed to the public for months due to the pandemic. The NBA is pushing back on Dallas Maverick owner Mark Cuban's decision to not play the national anthem before the team's home games. Cuban said he decided before the season began to not play the national anthem. He didn't elaborate on his decision, saying nobody had noticed. Cuban was outspoken against critics of NBA players and coaches kneeling during the anthem when the 2019-2020 season resumed in Florida last summer. NBA Chief Communications Officer Mike Bass said with NBA teams now in the process of welcoming fans back into their arenas, all teams will play the national anthem in keeping with the long-standing league policy. Now, as many of you know, the pandemic has left many of our senior citizens lonely and isolated. They've been trying to keep safe by staying indoors, but that can really take a mental and emotional toll. So one company is providing Robo dogs to give them some attention and comfort during a tough time. Our sister station in Syracuse, New York reports.
Sarah Sunday's office sounds more like an animal shelter these days. The head of the Office for the Aging has plenty of furry friends. Animatronic ones, that is. Through a state program, Sarah has been able to find 30 forever homes to help seniors who live alone.
Our seniors are isolated, they're lonely, they're scared, and we want to get these pets in their hands to give them a little joy and a little happiness, something to ease their loneliness.
I mean, he'll bark, he'll wag his tail.
One of those seniors is Robert Miller in Oswego. You may remember Robert. We've spoken to him a few times in the last year. His wife Joan is in a nursing home and he hasn't been able to see her in person since Halloween. It's weighed on him terribly, being alone for so long. But Sparky came along last Friday, and so far these two seem to be hitting it off.
Huh, are you looking at me? Huh? Yeah, you're really looking at me, aren't you? And they'll do this. So even though it's mechanical, but it just for a couple minutes it takes your mind off everything else that you got going on. I mean, I'm always sitting here thinking about my wife. So, huh.
Now, it may not seem like much, but the evidence is clear. These cats and dogs are leaving their paw prints all over the hearts of those who need them most. And all they require is a little love in return. This puppy is headed to its forever home later this week. The Office for Aging is already planning on ordering more cats and dogs, making sure this office stays more like a shelter. In Oswego, Josh Martin, News Channel 9.
Well, that's an awesome story, and what a great way to bring some love and comfort to some of the people who are really suffering the most during this pandemic. So that's going to wrap up this WNCT Now digital news update, and we have more news coming up for you tonight on our broadcasts at 5 and 6. Thanks so much for watching.